Welcome back to the Cumbria Chamber of Commerce Directors Forum podcast with me, Eve Halliday. In this series, we'll meet some of the most interesting characters, directors and leaders in Cumbria and on occasion beyond. We've got a few new things planned this season, so stay tuned for that. And remember that the Directors Forum is kindly brought to you by Muckle LLP. In this episode, I talked to Barrie Roberts from Ennerdale Brewery and his wife from his kitchen. Barrie was an absolute legend to talk to. He's got some amazing stories. He's been on a great journey, and Ennerdale Brewery products are just fantastic, speaking from personal experience. So do check them out online and have a look at their range, or have a look on the new Made in Cumbria website, which has just gone live, which showcases amazing Cumbrian products and pushes you through to the websites of those producers so you can maybe get yourself a little treat. Anyway, let's get on with the interview. Barrie, do you want to start by telling me a little bit about Ennerdale Brewery?
Want the long version or the short version?
How long's the long version?
Takes forever and ever. How long have we got?
As long as you want.
Okay then, we'll start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I started the company in about 2010 at a little village called Crowsdale. Crowsdale is 2 miles from Ennerdale. Rowra, where the brewery is now, is 2 miles from Ennerdale. So if you draw a triangle, that's where it is. So I started the company around about 2010 in Crowsdale. We had a brewer, we had the brewer stroke driver, office admin. So there was probably 3 of us, 4 maximum. And that's where we started from. As we progressed, I think we were there 2 or 3 years, but it became unfunctional because of the location. The location was stunning. It was in a barn. Mm-hmm. It was in the countryside. We had deers, foxes, geese, all sorts of animals up there. So from a practical point of view, it wasn't the place for a brewery. But we had a lovely time there. Anyway, in the end, we were getting too big for the brewery. We couldn't grow bigger inside the barn where we were. So we went looking for new premises, and we found Rowra about 2014, 2015. We got involved with a guy called Glyn Griffith. So with Glyn, we worked for a while to get funding to buy the premises.
Right.
And then Glyn was successful. But we had to work and put a story together, a business plan, a growth projection, all sorts of information. But it's part of the journey, and it was quite interesting. So with the help of Glyn, funding, and we managed to buy the premises that we're in now at Rowra. Mm-hmm. So fast forward to 2023, we have 21 employees. We have a restaurant that is getting bigger and bigger. The brewery needs development more, but we can live with that for now. That's another challenge, another project. So from 2010 to 2023, I think we're about to take off. So that, in a nutshell, is it really. You know, I could go on forever with all the issues and problems that we've had, but that's where we are at this moment in time.
Okay, so going right back to the very beginning, where are you from? What is your background? What got you to 2010 and opening a brewery?
Right, my discipline is mechanical engineering, and I'm from Stockton-on-Tees over in the northeast, which you can probably detect. And I was working at Sellafield, and I was sick of working away. So I said to my wife, shall we move? Do you fancy moving? We have 3 children, 3 girls, and they're all at an age where they're going different ages going through school. Fortunately, my wife agreed with me. So we moved over to here in this house where we are now, 31 years ago. And to jump forward and start where the brewery is, I met a guy who worked in the same company as me, and it was his idea and my idea to start the brewery. I mean, I used to brew at home. I brewed a lot of times at home, and I brewed at the brewery. And we both sat there thinking, well, why don't we open a brewery? I mean, this is how naive we were, by the way. Why don't we open a brewery? Well, who's going to buy a beer? Well, we know it's all right because I know a lot about beer, to be honest. And I thought, well, can't be that hard. But obviously, the journey that we've been on is quite difficult and torturous and arduous, and lots and lots of problems along the way. So it was started by me and this guy at Sellafield. Unfortunately, he took ill health and he stepped back when we were at Crowsdale. When he stepped out, I said to the family, two of my daughters, do you want to come on board? So they were quite happy. A lot of the hard work had been done then. A lot of hard work was still to be done. My two youngest daughters and my wife and my son-in-law all became involved with the brewery. Mm-hmm. Once we moved to well, it was at the back end of moving from Crowsdale to the beginning of the inception of Brewery. That was the start of it. You asked about the start of the brewery, and that was me and another guy. We started it. He left through ill health, and then I'm still here. So that is how we started. It's a very simple story, you know. When you say, "How did you start, Barry?" I said, "Well, two guys sat in an office saying, well, why don't we open a brewery? Well, we'll find somewhere." But to buy the equipment, to find the investment, to find the money, it's huge, and it's as I use the word naive because we didn't really understand the implications. I think if we did, we might not have done it. But as I say to you, 13 years on, here we are with a company that's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. So how long did those conversations go on in the office? Because there's so many people that have chats with colleagues like, we should do this and we should do this. How long did that conversation go on in the office about we should do something, we should start a brewery, until you went, yeah, all right, let's do it?
I'd say at least 12 months, because in them 12 months, we had to put a story together. I'm making it sound simplistic, but you have to put a story together. And part of the story, you've got to put a business plan. And part of the business plan is putting projections together. So I was in project management, so I understand these things, and I know what companies require. You can't just go to a bank manager and say, we're going to open a brewery. So, well, okay, then what are you going to sell your beer to? Well, we're going to go and knock on doors. Well, can you not put a storyline together and a business plan? If you want me to lend you money, how am I going to get it back? So we sat with business managers and bank managers and venture capitalists and all sorts of people along the way. So to try and answer your question, that initial start was a long start. So because we were working together, we spent an awful lot of time together. Even after work, we'd go to his house or my house, and you'd carry on the storyline. We had to put a storyline together that was believable. I'm sure you understand what I mean by that. You can't just go with a bit of toilet paper and a few notes scribbled down. Say, well, there you are, that's what we're going to do. So we had to become more and more professional, and that was the side where you get kicked about a little bit, because when you present something and it's not good enough and you get ripped to shreds and you say, well, how are you going to do that, Barry? Where's that money coming from? What? And it was a massive learning curve. And I've talked to people, I've held presentations before about this, but I still had a hell of a learning curve when I went through this business to try and get it to where it is now. And I'm still learning now.
Yeah. Well, you never stop learning, do you? And, you can be very clever, and you can, you were in project management and you did all of that, and then thinking, I know exactly how to put a business plan together. I know what to do. And then when it actually comes down to the litmus test of taking it to the bank or taking it to an investor, and then start pulling it apart, you think, oh, God, I wasn't expecting that.
It's a long, arduous road.
Mm-hmm. So go back to Stockton-on-Tees. Where did you go to school? What was the start? How did you get into this love of brewing and knowing a lot about beer? Like, take me right back to the beginning. Give me the long story. I want to know it all, warts and all.
Stockton-on-Tees school, blimey heck. I went to a boys' school, not because I was a bad lad, just because I was sent to a boys' school. So that was my first school, Frederick Nattrass, in Stockton-on-Tees. From there, I progressed to a secondary modern, done certain O levels, got to a reasonable standard. Left school, served my time at a big company called Head Wrightson, which you won't have heard of. They were very, very big in the Northeast. And from there, I went to college, Stockton Billingham Technical College, got ONC. And somewhere along that journey, I fell in love with beer, as most people do. But what I try and differentiate here is I do like beer. I do like socialising. Mm-hmm. And at my level now, where I am now, I understand the difference with beers. And a lot of people make beers, and to me, they're not proper beers. But I think over the years to where I've got, I understand beer a lot more. Mm-hmm. So going back to when the wife and I got married and we had children, we had no money. You know, you see these things on TV now and you think, well, hang on, you've got a mobile phone and you've got a big TV. We didn't have these things. Mm-hmm. So consequently, you've got to look for avenues and opportunities. And the only way that I could do it was brew beer. So I used to brew a lot of beer at home, at Teesside, mm-hmm. with friends. And we'd just swap recipes and learn as you went on. And you developed the beer into what you thought was a reasonable standard. So I've always had an interest in beer. I've always loved beer. And I think that's where it started when the children were little and we couldn't afford to go out. So I used to brew beer and it's never, ever left me. And then if you fast forward 10, 15 years, you want the long version. So when we were in Teesside, again, through necessity, I went abroad to work and I've worked offshore and I've worked all over the place. And as time went on, if we jump forward to when I said to the wife, can we move to Sellafield? Because I was sick of traveling. Mm-hmm. That was like the starting point. And when I came over here in Cumbria, the wife and I, we absolutely loved it. You know, consequently, we've been here for 31, 32 years now. And it's just a fantastic area. It's so diverse. It has some fantastic public houses. So my love of beer continued, and it just continued and continued until I bumped into this guy who said, why don't we start a brewery? So there is the journey. I didn't start it because I wanted to make money, although it would be nice to make money. It's a very, very hard business to try and make money. Mm-hmm. I genuinely started because of my love of beer. And once we got up and running and got to where we were, then if you can imagine this, I could then decide, I could then brew a beer to my liking, to what I wanted, as long as it sold. That was the main thing. It's okay brewing beer that you want, but you know, I can't drink 40 barrels, so I've got to be able to sell it. That sort of is another part of the journey where we design beers that I like, but as long as beers that sold. So it's a happy marriage, really. When you find yourself in charge of a brewery and you can brew a beer that you want, as long as it will sell. So that has been very, very interesting. Designing, which we've done a lot of. We've got a lot of beers now. But to answer your question, my journey from school to leaving school to college, you know, to all these things that we all do. But the passion for beer is still with me now after all those years.
Yeah. So do you remember your first pint of beer that you had? Like, was it love at first sight? First taste?
But I think so. But again, we'll go back. I'll answer your question, but we'll go back to the social side.
Okay.
My first memories of drinking beer is with the friends that I grew up with when I was over in Teesside. So I'm probably going back to, I don't know, 16, 17-year-old here. So I can remember quite clearly the pubs that I went into with the friends that I played with and enjoying a pint of... It's also, I think, feeling grown up as well, by the way.
Yeah.
So I was now working. I was serving my time. I don't know whether you understand what that means, but...
Yeah, absolutely.
Not in jail, by the way.
No.
So I served a 5-year apprenticeship. So I was serving my time with friends. You were growing up in the world. You were developing yourself. And part of that was going out and socializing and drinking with your friends. So I can remember that quite clearly. And one of the things that I can remember even better, which you probably won't understand here, I can remember going to a pub in a public house in a place called Hardwick. And I can remember getting 8 pints of beer for £1.
Oh.
So each pint of beer was 2 and 6pence. Do you know what 2 and 6pence is?
Yeah, I do. See, my dad also loves beer.
There you go.
Yeah, and he was always like, oh, I remember when beer used to be 2 and 6pence, and you could go down and go out, you know, after he'd done his apprenticeship, and he would go out with us. It was exactly the same. And I don't think you could get a pint of beer for less than £5 an hour or something.
No. So if you look at those times then and these times now, so I've been on this journey all the way through my life. So I could sit and talk about beer forever and ever, because I genuinely love beer. But the social side to me is equally as important.
Yeah. Because that's one of the ingredients, isn't it, really? You know, people have drinks and they have favourite drinks, and it can be beer or rum or whiskey or whatever. But having that social and that bringing people together, it really is a catalyst for that, isn't it? Beer and that enjoyment of that.
It's very much so. And if you shoot off on a tangent and you go into loneliness and old people and all sorts of things, you know, public houses is where people met and talked and drank and had a fun time. You could go there and then leave it and go home and go back the next day or the next week to see the same people, but you'd socialise. But public houses were meeting places. They still are.
So talking about your beers and that you brew and design something that you like, what is the theme of beer that you tend to like?
I'll use the word generic.
Okay.
Because I'm quite old-fashioned in a generic type of way we're drinking. There's a lot of modern beers, and they target a certain age group, you know, maybe it's 30 to 35s or university graduates or whatever. And that is not my style of beer. Generic is in the sense that we have hops that we've used in this country since hops were invented, and they're very, very old-fashioned traditional hops, and that is my type of beer. Unfortunately, because of COVID, because of cost of living, because of a numerous amount of things, people are not socialising and drinking as much as what they did 10, 15, 20 years ago. So the market's moved, and the target now is younger people. Older people, we find, still drink, and are still a generic drinker, and it's still a traditional style, which is what we keep at the brewery. But in the past 12 months, we've just designed 3 new beers aimed for a younger market.
Okay.
So we're trying to capture a younger market and an older market. Still, because I'm a generic traditional type of beer, type of drinker, the market shrunk a little bit. You know, public houses have closed. People don't do what they did. Like 30 years ago when we came here, I live in a little village called Ennerdale, and a lot of people, all the farmers used to go drinking all the time. A lot of the farmers have got old and some have passed away, and the sons haven't followed through. So the footfall is not the same. So what we rely on, and I wander a little bit here, so stop me if you want.
No, wander away.
Tourism starts to kick in Ennerdale now, end of March, Easter. And then you get an awful lot of people, I don't know, 60, 80,000 come through the village in the year, in a season. So we get a massive mixture of young and old people. So traditional and new style, if you like, beers sell well. But when you go back to the winter, traditionalists come out and generic beers kick back in. So it's understanding the market as well. It's understanding your who's going to drink your beer, how they're going to drink your beer, when they're going to drink your beer. For instance, dark nights you have a stout, summer nights you'd have a light ale, and all these sorts of things. So you brew to suit the market. You brew to suit that person who's going to walk through that door and drink your beer. So it's not complicated. It's these things have been handed down over the years. You know, we drank dark beers and dark winter nights when it was cold outside, or you sat in a little pub with a light on, and then you don't drink the summer beer in the winter. So it's just how you market that type of person, who's going to drink your beer. Unfortunately, as I say, because of COVID, we've noticed more so with COVID, a lot of people have tended to stop coming out so much, stop drinking so much, whether they're frightened of COVID, whether they're wary of sitting in a public house with a lot of people. All these factors come into play, and we're aware of that. So you've got to try and find your way through it, or navigate a way better round of ensuring that the business can cope with the problems that's in front of you. So there, in a nutshell, is I think, where did we start off there? With what type of beers?
What type of beers do you brew? So the 3 new beers that you've designed, tell us a bit about them. How have you designed them? What's the theme? What's the inspiration?
Right. Do you know John Paul Jones? John Paul Jones was an American who invaded Whitehaven. Right. I think in the 17th or 18th century. We decided a while back to toy with the idea of designing new beers around John Paul Jones. Do you know you're only 6 clicks away from the most important person in the world? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
You've heard that?
6 degrees of separation and everything.
Yeah. President Clinton proposed to Hillary at Ennerdale.
Really?
Really. Now, there you go. So he stopped in the Ennerdale Hotel. Ennerdale Hotel is 2 miles from me. So we're less than 6 clicks from the most powerful man in the world. So the idea behind what we did was to design and create something entirely different from our generic beers. And we thought, on the back of this, we'll market it with John Paul Jones. So we designed 3 beers. I can't think what they're called now because they're only new. No, I honestly can't think what they are, but they're all IPAs.
So is this the American trilogy?
Correct.
Harbour Rebel, Star Spangled Nana, Star Spangled Nana, and the Cable Guy.
That was because Nana was Jefferson's mother, was born in Whitehaven.
Right. All right. Okay.
So the connection is between Whitehaven and America. So what we would try and do is join the 2 together, designing a brand new beer, because we hadn't done an IPA before. Well, a heavily hopped IPA like what these are. All these 3 beers are American IPAs on the theme of John Paul Jones, and they're all kegged. And canned, sorry. We canned some as well. So that has just kicked off, I think, only January or February. So it's only just come out. So I'm at the point to put an R&D claim in it for the research work that we had to do for that. So that is the basic story behind the 3 new beers that we designed for John Paul Jones. And it's also, whether it ever happens or not, it would be nice to tap into the American market. But the worry is, if you tap into the American market, we'd have to have a new brewery. We would never be able to do what we want to do. So it's just a play, if you like, and we throw it up in the air. We've been involved with, what's our MP? What do they call her? Trudy. So we're working with Trudy, on exporting and things like that. So these are all things for the future. Where I find myself, if you like, then. I said to you, when we started Crowsdale, we had 3 or 4 employees. We now have 21. With 21 employees brings a whole load of headaches of all sorts of different categories.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It is, and the money and everything else. And I look back and I talk to friends and we have a drink, and people say, "Did you ever think you'd get here, Barry?" And I say, "Well, I never started the company off to get here to that level. It just develops. It happens. You work at it. You sell your beer. Your beer is good. People buy it. They want more. You design your brewing equipment. You uplift. You upgrade. We went to these new premises. When we put this new premises together, we never put the restaurant in the business plan. The restaurant now turns over as much, if not more, as the brewery.
Brilliant.
And that's a lot of it. That's down to my wife. My wife done that side. I was on the brewery side, and even now, the wife sits above. We have a chef, well, two chefs, and a manager.
Mm-hmm.
So they manage the restaurant. My wife manages them,
Mm-hmm.
and the son-in-law and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm more involved with the other side. So getting back to what I just started off with there, it's gone massive. And you think, hang on a minute, I only did a little brewery.
Yeah, I only started it because I love beers and like to brew it, and it sounds as though you wanted a bit more of a, not a lifestyle business, but something that you were really passionate about, something that you really enjoyed. You kind of had enough of the corporate type working for a big business, and you wanted to do something that you loved, and then it's just grown and grown and grown from there.
Correct. It's strange, you know. You like blink and you're here, and there's lots and lots of stories to tell along the way. But suddenly we're here now with 21 employees. I think I never started like that. I only wanted a pint.
So which of all of the beers that you've ever brewed, which is your absolute favourite that you just can't get enough of?
Okay. My favourite has to be the Ennerdale Blonde.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can remember quite clearly, we got a consultant in. This is at Crowsdale, so I'm going back 13 years ago. There's a guy called Peter Laws. Peter Laws was Jennings' head brewer. He was an absolute fantastic guy.
Mm-hmm.
I loved him. I really did, in the sense that he was a proper guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A man's man. And I loved him. So we met him, I don't know, 2010, around then. And he came to the brewery and he says, right then, Barry, and there was 2 or 3 of us sat round, and he was going to design the first beer. So he says to you, what colour do you want it? So we said, blondish. And he has a pen and paper. When you do a recipe, you work to a load of styles and numbers, and it's like a matrix, and you're ticking everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, what colour do you want? We told him about that colour. What ABV, which is the strength?
Mm-hmm.
And I said 4.5. And the people would say, no, that's too strong. So I like strong beer. So I got big. And he says, how about 3.8? So I said, go on then. Again, this is getting back to the beer that I want that you're talking about. So he's writing these things down. He said, what's your favourite beer, Barry? Which is the beer that you like the most? And I said to him, Timothy Taylor Landlord. And I still think Timothy Taylor Landlord is one of the best beers in the world. He said, right then. Where we were at Crowsdale, the water came from a well. It wasn't tap water. It was a well. It was unbelievably soft. It was beautiful. So he took analysis and samples of the water, and he went away, and he come back with a recipe. And he says, there you are, Barry. There's the recipe. Follow that, and you should get what you've asked for. So that was the introduction to Peter Laws, who was a fantastic guy. He designed my beer, the Ennerdale Blonde, and that is my favourite beer.
So it is like a science.
Yeah, I don't want to deregulate this. It's like baking a cake, but you've got to design it, and it is very, very clever. I couldn't design a beer, by the way. I can brew, but I couldn't design a beer.
Okay.
So he come along with all these calculations of how to get a blonde beer at 3.8 ABV drinkable that tastes something along the lines of Timothy Taylor. And he was spot on. But his words were, you know, he said, it's like anything else, Barry. It's like baking a cake. As long as you follow the same ingredients at the same time, the same length of time, you should come out with that cake the same every time. And one of his mantra was consistency. As long as you follow that recipe to the letter and the times and the durations, everything else, you will come out with the same beer. So that's the story about the blonde, and that's Peter Laws, and that was my introduction to him, and he was a fantastic guy. Yeah.
And that is your favourite, hands down, that you've brewed and that you continue to brew.
Yep.
Because all of these are available on your website as well. Because I was having a look, because there are some beer lovers in my house.
That's our bestseller, that one. So
Is it? That's the one to try.
It just goes very easily, yeah.
What is the biggest surprise, or what was the biggest adjustment for you from going from working for somebody else, starting a brewery because you wanted a pint, and now having 22 employees?
Hours that you work.
You are?
The hours that you work.
Yeah, the wife just said something there. Yeah. That she's dead true. Yeah, and I was looking for something to say there. At my other job, I work 40 hours a week, and I work within a team of people. So I had QSs, safety officers, safety advisors, a whole raft of people to support you in that business that I worked. The transition from there to the brewery, as my wife just said, which is very true, you'd work 100 hours, and it's like it never leaves you. It's constant. You worry that you can't pay bills. You worry that you can't pay wages. You worry when things break down. You work. I'm not so much now, but we work. You're constantly worrying. So you'd wake up in the night thinking, "How am I going to solve this problem?" You know, there were challenging problems, and you have to fight your way through it. As I said to you, it's been a long journey, and you get a lot of edges knocked off you. But that was the major challenge. You know, you'd work, instead of working 40 hours, I'd work 100 hours. And, you know, I didn't make 100 hours worth of wages. It's just like a love. It's something you either do or you don't do. If you don't do it, then it doesn't work. And we've had some massive ups and downs with HMRC, with VAT, with all sorts of issues. But as I sit here now in the house with my wife, we're fairly well off, we're comfortable, but you have to go through it.
Yeah.
You are going to get battered going through it. I didn't know that, by the way, when I started. I didn't start off with that. It's been a hell of a journey. But see, yeah, to answer your question simplistically there, Eve, I went from 40 hours to 100 hours, from 5 days a week to 7 days a week, without even knowing it, because it sucks you in.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Is when it is a labour of love, you don't mind, do you? It just happens and you just accept it. Or was it really difficult to be like, I've had enough, I can't do this anymore? Or did you never question it?
Yeah, there was both sides to that. You know, you'd sit at times with your head in your hands and thinking, how do I work my way through this? How do I get through this? And if I'm to be fairly honest, you know, I am quite resilient. You know, I do like a challenge, and I do like knocking walls down. But there comes a time when, you know, there's times when I've sat in here with my head in my hands, and my wife said to me, "Do you think it's time we stopped, or call it a day?" And you'd say, "No, we'll find a way around this."
Yeah.
And you have to battle through it. You've got to believe in yourself. Even there's lots of people, lots of stories out there on TV. You'll see them all the time, where you mortgage your house up to the hilt and you do all this, but unless you believe in what you're doing, then you might as well not do it. Fortunately for me, I believed in what I was doing, because I hope you understand that at the bottom of all this is the passion for beer and the social side of it. And that's the root, the rock that's in me. If it wasn't there, I don't know what I would have done. But fortunately, we stuck with it. We've got a very successful business. All I want to do now is travel about the world and journey with my wife. So,
does it make you really proud, or what does it give you when you think, you see a crate of beer or a keg going out or a cask going out, and you think, do you think about the people that are going to be enjoying that together, or do you think about where that's going, and does that keep you going in a way?
Yeah, there's several answers to that question. I had a guy come to see me. He didn't come to see me personally, but he came in the brewery and he bumped into me. He says, "Hello, Barry, do you know who I am?" And I said, "There's a guy, he doesn't know who he is." I did recognise him. And I know him. And when we connected, he says, "I want to shake your hand, Barry." He's a businessman, and he's 80, I think. He says, "You're employing all these people, and you're giving all these people a job, and you're giving all these people a chance to do something." And that made me quite proud because I wasn't aware of that. So you get that side of it. Then the other side is people come to me and says, hey, your beer's in bloody Morrison's and Aston and da-da. How have you managed that? Well, obviously, if it's no good, you wouldn't get it in there. So that makes me quite proud.
Mm-hmm.
And then the best thing that I like most is when you're at the bar and you're having a pint and someone says, Jesus, Barry, what a pint of beer that is. So there's lots of connections
Mm-hmm.
that make me feel quite proud, if that's the word you want to use, of what we've achieved. I always, again, on the back of it, I always think that I know enough about beer to know what a good beer and a bad beer is. If you don't, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So I think that's helped me along the way. The business side is what's caught me out, as I've just said to you there. From 2 or 3 employees to 21. And I never ever dreamt of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got 21 employees who are, I think, quite happy, all employed, all earning money.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an out and out bonus, you know, to what we've done.
Yeah.
So the answer to your question there is yes, when I'm stood at the bar and someone has a pint of beer and says, bloody hell, buddy, that's a good pint.
Mm-hmm.
That means an awful lot to me.
Yeah.
And then when people come and shake my hand and say, well done, Barry, that means an awful lot to me.
Yeah.
And when people come and say, hey, your beer's here, that means an awful lot to me. So yeah, there's a lot of pluses in it, but hard work.
Lots of little drips of enthusiasm, and
There's
it
lots of little
sounds
hooks-
like
lots of little hooks there that catch
yeah,
you.
yeah, and it sounds like as well, you know, you've got that social side of having a beer and sitting around together, but you've also got that social side where you've got a family now of 22 employees that are making that beer, and that is another element of the social side of the beer, I suppose.
And I don't know whether we designed this by accident or it's happened, but again, this is more my wife than me. What we've achieved in the restaurant is a similar setup.
Right.
The restaurant is 2/3 restaurant, tables eating, 1/3 bar.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have an environment where people can come and have a pint of beer
Mm-hmm.
while they're waiting to have something to eat. So they can drink the beer. And I'd love a bigger place now. It's too small and it's massive. So there's another headache. But we've achieved this over the years that we've been there. And somehow we've designed an environment that is an environment that I like.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I am not on the restaurant side. My wife is on the restaurant side and the manager, and they've designed that side. The main crux of that side was to get people sitting on tables on bums, eating meals, and they've done fantastic that side. As a byproduct of that, I put the bar in. The bar's there. It's still the same bar, but it's a really comfortable environment.
Yeah.
And from that, I don't know how we've done this. We've managed to attract the right clientele. Now that to me is a massive thing. If we'd have had the wrong clientele coming through those doors, causing havoc or chaos or mayhem, then we'd have had a little bit of a fight in our hands. But through whatever we've done, we've managed it. It's been managed, sorry, not me. And we have a fantastic restaurant, a lovely bar, beer that's to die for, and the clientele and the crack behind the bar is good. It's I couldn't have asked for more.
Yeah, it's exactly what you wanted when you said all I wanted was a pint.
That's correct.
You've
But I
got
never
so much
designed.
more.
I never designed that. That's what I'm saying. It's happened and it's developed and it's been managed, and suddenly I've got what I want without even knowing it.
That's amazing, isn't it? That must make you so proud.
It does. But it's like there's an awful lot of effort goes in from the family. To manage 21 people takes a bit of effort. Keeping them all happy, driving them in the right direction, getting them to do what you want to do,
Yeah.
but also to develop the company. It's no easy thing managing people, and that makes me quite proud. We have people there who've been with us now for like 5-6 years. So as long as we've been there at the new brewery,
Yeah.
we're obviously doing something right.
Yes. And you said that the business side threw you a little bit because you loved beer. But if you had to distill your business ethos now down into one phrase, what would that phrase be?
Listen to people who know what they're talking about.
That is an excellent phrase. Absolutely.
Because I didn't know what I was talking about. But you
Mhm.
have to listen to people who know what they're talking about. We
Mhm.
got there in the end through business advisors.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's about, I
Okay.
think, sum it up.
And with the people that work with you, whether that be a business advisor or be someone that works with you, what are the 3 non-negotiable behaviours that they have to have? What 3 qualities do you look for in people that want to join the Ennerdale Brewery family?
You've got to be a team player. You've
Mhm.
got to be wanting to work for the benefit of the company. You know, you've got to be able to socialise and mix. I'm maybe being a bit hard there. You know, and again, it's my wife said, we have employed people who are not, I don't know, social active, you know, where we've got to try and bring them out of the shell.
Mhm.
You understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah. Introverts.
I'm trying not to be selective here because I started an apprenticeship. I'll just digress a bit here. Don't forget the question you asked me because I forgot it already. I started an apprentice 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and I had to go to Whitehaven Job Centre and then interview some people. I interviewed 10 people,
Mhm.
and there were 10 people, all 18, 19, 20, 21. And I've got to be brutal and frank here because some of them, I'm thinking, how are these kids going to get through life?
Mm.
One of them swore twice and apologised, which was quite funny, really. It was as though others hadn't a clue. And these people, bearing in mind, as I said to you, when I was 16, I served my time, went to college, done all this. I'm not saying I'm lucky, I'm not saying whatever. I'm just saying this is what you did.
Mm.
You know, you had to do things, go out there and get a job. I'm suddenly confronted by 10 people. And there was a whole spectrum of issues with them all. Anyway, I never started anyone. There was one guy who never turned up. I thought that's a good start. So this guy phoned me up a day or so later, apologised for not being there. He says, can I pop in and see you? So come on in then. So this guy walked in and he looked like a tramp. I'm thinking this is a good start. So he sits down and he's talking to me. And as soon as he started talking, I could see a spark in him. And I liked him.
Mhm.
And I sat and talked to him for about an hour. And he had major issues with his mother,
Mhm.
which I won't go into.
Mhm.
And that probably swayed me into starting him. And 2 years on, I've never looked back. And he said to me only not so long ago, before Christmas,
Mhm.
and again, this is what makes me proud. He said, 18 months ago, Barry, he said, I didn't have a job. He says, I didn't know what I was doing. He said, now the girls have invited me to a Christmas party. You got tears in your eyes. You know, I think, well, are you okay with that, Ben? He said, yeah, I'm over the moon. He's got a job. He's got money. He's got friends. And all the staff make a fuss of him. So 2 years on, I'm proud of starting that lad. And I've
Yeah.
given him a chance.
So just not judging a book by its cover and giving a chance to someone if you see that spark and then that you
I'm
think
trying to redeem myself.
there's something there. There's something there.
But you asked a question about, was it about 3 things about employees?
3 non-negotiable behaviours. What 3 behaviours do you look for?
Obviously, they've got to be able to present themselves in the right light.
Mhm.
But I'm just saying there, I got that apprentice wrong because she walked in like a tramp.
Mhm.
Some of the people that I employed I interviewed at Whitehaven came in with ties on and things, but they were like that. They were the wrong way around. But they tried. This lad didn't try.
Mhm.
But as soon as he opened his mouth, I liked him. So I'm contradicting myself there a little bit. But basically, they've got to. We try and get the right understanding, the right appearance. Appearance is a big thing to me. And some of these things that you see on TV, and I don't want to get into trouble here, but you're thinking, how do these people get a job? So presentation is a big thing to us because they're dealing with the public. Background and if I go to the brewery side, because I'm only on the restaurant day, if I go to the brewery side, it's got to be an educational background. They've got to have, we ask for things in chemistry, we ask for things in people management, we ask for things in obviously IT, and the brewery's entirely different to the restaurant. The brewery is more educational and it's more mathematical. You work in the formulas and tablets and pages of formulas and calculations. So education is a big thing in the brewery, background in the brewery, presentation inside the restaurant. It is so important to try and get the right person. I'm not saying you get the right person all the time, because if the right person turns out to be the wrong person, then your company suffers and you're starting again. So we try and put things in place through training, and we have a pretty good team where we discuss and talk, meetings, and if we're looking for people, we try and advertise to the right organisations and try and get, hopefully, the right person that dovetails into the things that we expect in the brewery. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the next question, I've got a feeling I already know the answer to it because I think she's in the kitchen there with you. But in your opinion, what is your superpower?
I think if I was to say something now, I think my wife would agree. And I'd use the word consistency. If I was in the brewery, the staff would know where I was, who I was, and what I was, and what I stand for, really. So when I use the word consistency, I'd be there at the brewery before everybody, and I'd leave after everybody. So I think the people at the brewery would look to me for obviously guidance, confidence, and I'd say consistency.
Consistency is an excellent personality trait. There's nothing worse than having an inconsistent manager.
That's correct.
So I think that's absolutely brilliant.
I think I got a nod there after wife.
What is the most common misconception of beer? And what would you say to set it straight?
The most misconception, in my opinion, is people will pick up a pint of beer, have a drink of it, and say, that's bloody strong, Barry. And it's like 4.2%. The misconception with people is they get confused. To make beer, the grain provides the sugar. The yeast converts the sugar into alcohol. And then depending on the recipe, it'll determine what the beer is. It's the hops that provide the taste. Now, hops play a massive part in producing a different flavour to a different beer to a different audience. And I found this for a long, long time, people say, that's a strong beer when it isn't a strong beer. And they get confused with the taste of the hops. An ordinary low ABV beer, but heavy in taste, it's the hops that they use. They'll give you this mouthfeel and they'll say, that's a blooming strong beer. And it isn't. So that's the biggest misconception that I come across with beer.
People think it's a strength and actually it's the hops.
It's just the taste and they get confused with this. And obviously, again, as long as I've drank beer, people seem to be either wary, afraid, or concerned about the term real ale. It's just like, whoa, you don't want to be drinking real ale, it's strong. It's no different to lager. Lager's 4-5%. Real ale, it's like it carries this warning: don't drink real ale, or if you want to get drunk, drink real ale. It's just people's misconception about real ale.
It's total misconception, isn't it?
A total misconception, yeah.
So the next question is, thinking back to your 16-year-old self who was out having his first pints of beer and socialising with his friends, what would you say to your teenage self? If you could meet him for a pint, what would you say to him?
Probably drink more responsibly, because we've all drank too much, haven't we?
Good advice. And the next one you might need to think about, because everybody does. If there was a movie to be made about your life, what would the movie be called? And which actor would play you?
Mr. Bean.
Did you hear that?
So would it be Rowan Atkinson would be the actor? Great.
No, I didn't say that. I'm thinking more Robert De Niro.
Actually, I can see it.
It's a difficult question. The Long and Winding Road, Jack Nicholson.
Now the final question is every guest leaves a question for the next guest, but the one that's been left for you is, did you always follow your parents' advice when you were younger? And if you didn't, do you wish you had, and why?
No, I never followed my parents' advice because they're both in heaven. I don't think they give me very good advice. If I was to be honest, I come from a family of 7. I'm the middle one, 3 on either side. And I was always regarded as the black sheep of the company.
All right.
I have done things differently to everybody else. So no, and I'm sure they'll understand, I never took my parents' advice, and I always set off on a journey on my own.
Barrie, is there anything else that you would like to say or like to have included about yourself or Ennerdale Brewery?
You've got to have the desire, and it's got to be in your heart. And I have sat at times with my head in my hands. I really have. I think, is this really worth it? How am I going to afford to pay this bill? Where am I going to get the money from? Lots and lots of headaches and questions to answer. But if you've got faith and belief in yourself, you must have faith and belief in yourself. You've got to, if you haven't got it in there, you've got to walk away. And I have that. And plus, I had the support of my family, which is a massive thing.
Yeah.
You know, a massive thing when someone puts their arm around you and says, come on, Barrie, you'll get through this. I know you'll find a way. I know you will. And you've got to really, really believe in that. Otherwise, you might as well just give up and go.
Yeah. Barrie, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. I want to give you an introduction to our sponsors, Muckle LLP. Muckle's a leading independent law firm for business with specialists in virtually every area of commercial law. They're based in Penrith and in Newcastle, and they've been supporting businesses and individuals throughout the North East, nationally and internationally, for over 100 years. They're guided by values of trust, teamwork, responsibility and care. That means no matter who you speak to, you'll get the same excellent service from people who do what they say, on time and in budget, every time. That's the Muckle way. They're responsive, practical, and hopefully they'll be an extension of your own team. So whatever you want to achieve, from setting up, selling, recovering debt, digital tech, purchasing property, or protecting your family's future, they're here to help make it happen. And if you want to discover how Muckle can help your business succeed, then email them at advice@muckle-llp.com.